Hey guys! Crescent Moon. Welcome back to Sleeping Stone Whispers. Tonight, we drift into a slow, gentle village story, a village naming ceremony for a newborn. This is not a tale of big drama or loud celebrations, but of soft morning mist, quiet preparations, whispered conversations, and the peaceful rhythm of rural life as a tiny baby receives their name. Every moment unfolds slowly, from washing brass pots to lighting evening oil lamps, until the village returns to stillness again. So settle in, breathe deeply, and let the calm carry you. If you enjoy slow, cozy, sleepy storytelling, please like the video and subscribe to Sleeping Stone Whispers for more peaceful journeys into quiet worlds. The morning arrived without hurry. Before the sun had fully decided to rise, a pale silver mist lay stretched across the village like a soft blanket. The fields beyond the mud houses were blurred into gentle shapes, their edges softened by the cool air. Dew clung patiently to blades of grass, shining faintly in the dim light, as if the earth itself were still half asleep. Nothing in the village moved quickly at this hour. A rooster crowed once, then again, as though even it felt no urgency. The sound drifted slowly across the open courtyards and clay rooftops. From somewhere far off, a cow shifted its weight, its bell giving a lazy clink that echoed and then disappeared into the mist. In the center of the village stood a cluster of old houses, their walls painted in faded shades of blue and yellow. The paint had peeled in places over the years, revealing layers beneath, each one telling a quiet story of passing seasons. Outside one such house, a neem tree stood tall and steady, its leaves barely stirring in the early breeze. Inside that house, the air carried a softness that only very early mornings hold. A small oil lamp still burned faintly in one corner of the room, its flame steady and patient. On a low wooden cot near the window lay a newborn baby, wrapped snugly in a pale cotton cloth. The baby's tiny chest rose and fell in a slow rhythm, undisturbed by the world outside. The mother rested nearby, propped up by folded quilts. Her eyes were closed, but she was not entirely asleep. Every few moments, she would open them slightly, just to look at the baby, just to be sure the gentle breathing continued. The quiet between them felt full, like a calm lake holding the reflection of the sky. From the kitchen area came the faintest sound of movement. The grandmother had risen before the others, as she always did. Her footsteps were soft against the packed earth floor. She did not light the main fire yet. Instead, she opened the wooden shutters a little, letting in a thin ribbon of morning light. It slipped across the room slowly, touching the edges of brass utensils stacked neatly on a shelf. Outside, the mist began to lift in patient waves. The outlines of distant trees grew clearer. A narrow dirt path that led to the well revealed itself inch by inch, as though the village were quietly waking from a dream. A young boy walked along that path carrying an empty metal pot, careful not to spill the silence. A pair of sparrows hopped along the courtyard wall, tilting their heads, watching the world with mild curiosity. They fluttered down near a small bowl of scattered grains and began to peck in slow, measured movements. Even their chirping seemed softer than usual, respectful of the hour. Back inside the house, the grandmother poured water into a clay pot. The sound was gentle and round, like a small stream finding its place. She paused for a moment, listening. In the next room, the baby stirred slightly, letting out a tiny sigh before settling again. The grandmother smiled to herself, a quiet smile that needed no audience. Today would be important. Not loud or hurried, but important in the quiet way some days are. By evening, the child would have a name. The thought rested in the air, unspoken but understood by the walls, by the neem tree outside, by the mist that still lingered at the edges of the fields. The sun slowly rose higher, painting the sky with faint shades of peach and gold. Light slipped gently over rooftops and across doorways. The village did not wake all at once, it unfolded, like a flower opening petal by petal. And in that slow unfolding, in the hush between night and day, the newborn slept peacefully, unaware that this calm morning was the beginning of a story the entire village would softly carry together. By mid-morning, the mist had fully lifted, leaving the village washed in a pale golden light. The air felt warmer now, though still gentle, as if the day itself wished to move without haste. Smoke began to curl lazily from kitchen fires, rising in thin spirals before fading into the brightening sky. The news did not arrive with drums or loud announcements. It traveled in the old village way, softly, steadily, carried in conversation. It began at the well. The grandmother from the baby's house had walked there with a brass pot balanced against her hip. Her steps were careful but unhurried, the path familiar beneath her feet. At the well, two women were already drawing water, their bangles clinking faintly as they pulled the rope hand over hand. "He will be named this evening," the grandmother said simply, after greeting them. The words settled into the air like small seeds. The women nodded. One smiled. The other adjusted the end of her sari over her head. "Ah," she replied, not surprised, as though she had been expecting this gentle confirmation. "Then we will come." Nothing more was needed. The rope creaked softly as another bucket descended into the cool darkness of the well. From there, the message drifted outward. One woman mentioned it to her daughter while kneading dough. The daughter, carrying fresh rotis on a steel plate, passed by her neighbor's courtyard and shared the news in a quiet tone. A man resting beneath a banyan tree overheard and carried the information further when he rose to leave. There was no rush. Each person received the news as though adding it carefully to their day, like placing an extra cup on a shelf. In one courtyard, an elderly man paused while trimming the edge of a bamboo basket. "This evening?" he asked gently. "Yes," came the reply. "After sunset." He nodded once and returned to his slow, patient work, though a faint smile rested beneath his gray mustache. Children playing with a worn cloth ball in the dusty lane heard it too. They did not fully understand the meaning of a naming ceremony, but they understood that something special, and perhaps sweet, might happen. Their game slowed for a moment as they whispered among themselves, then resumed in the same easy rhythm as before. The tailor, seated cross-legged in his shaded doorway, lifted his head when a customer mentioned it. His needle paused in midair. "I must finish this blouse by afternoon then," he murmured thoughtfully. The fabric slipped smoothly between his fingers as he returned to stitching, each movement precise and calm. The news traveled past painted doorframes and over low courtyard walls. It reached the small shop near the village entrance, where jars of lentils and rice stood in neat rows. The shopkeeper adjusted his weighing scale and made a mental note to close a little earlier than usual. No one seemed surprised. The baby had been born a few days ago. This day had always been quietly approaching. Back at the house beneath the neem tree, preparations remained simple. The grandmother had returned from the well and now sorted through a basket of marigolds. Their orange petals glowed brightly against her weathered hands. She separated the fresh blooms from the slightly wilted ones, humming an old tune that carried no urgency. Inside, the mother fed the baby slowly, whispering words that were more breath than sound. The child's tiny fingers curled and uncurled, as though practicing holding on to the world. Outside the gate, a few neighbors paused briefly as they passed. This evening, they would say softly, "We will come." And so the news completed its gentle journey, from courtyard to courtyard, from voice to voice, without ever disturbing the peaceful rhythm of the day. By noon, the entire village knew. Yet the village did not change. The buffalo still stood in shaded corners flicking their tails. The sun still climbed gradually overhead. Clay pots still cooled water in quiet kitchens. The path to the fields remained dusty and familiar. Only a subtle awareness had shifted, like a small lamp being lit inside many homes at once. By evening, the newborn would receive a name. But for now, the day continued as it always had, slow, steady, and wrapped in the soft murmur of village life. The afternoon settled gently over the village, warm but not harsh, as if the sun had chosen to soften its light for this particular day. Inside the house beneath the neem tree, the air carried a stillness that felt almost ceremonial, even though no ritual had yet begun. In the far corner of the main room sat an old wooden chest. It had rested there for many years, its surface darkened by time and touch. The brass latch was slightly tarnished, and faint scratches marked its lid. Small reminders of generations who had lifted and closed it before. The chest had been opened for weddings, for festivals, for births. And today, it would be opened again. The grandmother approached it slowly. She wiped her hands on the end of her sari and lowered herself carefully onto the floor beside it. For a moment, she simply sat there, her palm resting lightly on the lid. Her fingers traced the faint carvings along the edge, simple floral shapes etched long ago by someone whose name had been forgotten. The house was quiet. From the kitchen, the faint scent of roasting cumin drifted in. In the next room, the baby made a soft sound in sleep, then fell silent again. The grandmother lifted the latch. It gave a small metallic click, a sound that felt both ordinary and important. She raised the lid slowly, as though careful not to disturb the memories inside. A faint smell of sandalwood and old cotton rose into the air. Inside the chest were neatly folded garments wrapped in muslin cloth. There were small silver anklets tucked into a corner, their tiny bells silent. A string of worn prayer beads lay coiled like a resting snake. At the very bottom, beneath layers of folded fabric, rested a small embroidered cloth, pale cream with delicate golden thread along the border. She reached for it first. The cloth had once belonged to her own mother, who had used it many years ago for another naming ceremony. The threadwork was slightly faded, but the pattern remained intact, tiny flowers stitched patiently by hand. The grandmother held it up to the light, examining it with slow satisfaction. "Yes," she murmured softly to herself. "This will do." She placed it carefully beside her. Next, she lifted a small silver bowl wrapped in a square of red fabric. It caught the afternoon light and reflected it gently onto the wall. This bowl would hold the grains of rice later, where the first letter of the baby's name would be traced. The grandmother polished its surface with the edge of her sari until it shone a little brighter. From another corner of the chest, she retrieved a thin cotton garment, soft and white. It was simple, without decoration, but stitched with careful precision. She shook it lightly to remove any settled dust, then folded it again with quiet attention. Each object she removed carried its own silence, a stillness that spoke of continuity, of rituals repeated without hurry, of traditions held not by force but by memory. Outside, a light breeze stirred the neem leaves, casting gentle shifting shadows across the floor. The grandmother paused and listened to the faint rustling, as though the tree itself approved of her choices. She did not rush. Between each item, she rested her hands in her lap for a moment. Her breathing was steady. The afternoon sun moved slowly across the doorway, inching closer to the chest as time passed. Finally, she reached the bottom. There, tucked away beneath everything else, lay a small piece of folded paper. Its edges were yellowed with age. She unfolded it carefully. On it were written a few names, old family names, suggested by elders long ago. Some had already been given to children now grown. Others remained unused, waiting patiently. She read them quietly, her lips moving without sound. The baby stirred again from the next room, as if sensing the gentle attention being prepared. The grandmother folded the paper and placed it aside. The decision of the name would come later, during the ritual. For now, her task was simply to prepare. One by one, she arranged the selected items neatly beside the chest, the embroidered cloth, the silver bowl, the cotton garment, the anklets. Each piece lay calmly in the afternoon light, ready for evening. When she finally closed the lid, the latch made its small, familiar click once more. The chest returned to stillness. But the room felt different now, not louder, not busier, just slightly more aware. The quiet house held the sense that something meaningful was slowly approaching, carried forward by gentle hands and unhurried time. The sun leaned westward, softening its brightness as afternoon began to stretch into early evening. Shadows from the neem tree grew longer, reaching slowly across the courtyard like quiet fingers. The air felt warmer near the ground, but a faint breeze moved gently through the open space, carrying with it the scent of earth and distant cooking fires. The courtyard, though tidy as always, would need preparing. The grandmother stepped outside first, followed by the baby's aunt carrying a small broom made of thin, bound twigs. Neither spoke much. There was no list to check, no instructions to repeat. They both knew what must be done. The aunt began sweeping in slow, even strokes. The broom brushed across the packed mud floor with a soft, steady rhythm. Dust rose lightly, then settled again in thin golden clouds. Dry leaves gathered into a small pile near the gate. A few fallen neem seeds rolled quietly across the ground before being swept aside. The grandmother sprinkled water from a brass loda onto the earth. The droplets darkened the surface immediately, releasing a fresh, cooling scent. She moved carefully, spreading the water evenly, smoothing the ground with her palm in slow, circular motions. The courtyard seemed to breathe, as though refreshed by the touch. Near the doorway, a small wooden stool was placed carefully. This would hold the silver bowl later. The grandmother adjusted its position slightly, moving it an inch to the left, then back again, until it felt just right. There was no hurry. From the neighboring house, an older woman arrived quietly, carrying a bundle of marigolds wrapped in damp cloth. She sat cross-legged near the entrance and began threading them onto a thin cotton string. Her fingers worked steadily, piercing each flower through its center and sliding it gently along. Orange and yellow petals formed a bright line against the muted tones of the courtyard. The breeze lifted the ends of the garland occasionally, making the flowers sway before settling again. Inside, the mother rested with the baby, the door left slightly open so the sounds of preparation could drift in. The baby made a faint cooing noise, then fell silent, lulled by the rhythmic sweep of the broom and the quiet murmur of women's voices outside. In one corner of the courtyard, a clay lamp was placed on the ground. It remained unlit for now, waiting for evening. The grandmother checked the wick carefully, adjusting it with gentle fingers. A small brass plate was set beside it, holding grains of rice, a pinch of turmeric, and a few petals. A young cousin arrived carrying a small wooden cradle that had been stored in his house. Together, they placed it beneath the neem tree where the shade would remain longest. The cradle's ropes were inspected one by one, tightened slightly, then tested with a slow push. It swayed back and forth in a calm, steady motion. The leaves above rustled softly, as if approving the placement. Across the courtyard wall, two children peeked curiously, watching the preparations without speaking. Their eyes followed each movement, the spreading of water, the threading of flowers, the careful arranging of small objects. One child pointed at the cradle and whispered something inaudible. The other nodded solemnly. The aunt finished sweeping and leaned the broom against the wall. She wiped her forehead lightly with the edge of her sari, though she was not truly tired. The work had been gentle. The marigold garland was now complete. The grandmother stood and lifted it carefully, hanging it above the doorway. The flowers glowed warmly against the faded blue paint of the wall. She stepped back to examine it, tilting her head slightly. Then she nodded to herself, satisfied. The courtyard no longer looked like an ordinary afternoon space. It remained simple, mud floor, low walls, neem tree overhead, but it carried a quiet readiness now. A space prepared not with decoration alone, but with attention. The sun dipped a little lower. A faint golden hue touched the rooftops and slipped between the leaves. Somewhere in the distance, a cow lowed softly, and a temple bell rang once, slow and deep. The courtyard rested in its new arrangement, patient and calm. It waited, not for noise or celebration, but for the gentle unfolding of evening, when a small voice would receive a name beneath the open sky. The sun had begun its slow descent, though the afternoon light still shimmered softly across the village paths. Near the well at the edge of the main lane, a quiet gathering had formed, not of people talking loudly, but of women moving with purpose and calm. The naming ceremony would require simple offerings, milk, rice, sweets, water for blessings. And for these, the brass utensils must shine. The grandmother arrived first, carrying a shallow brass thali tucked beneath her arm. Behind her came the baby's aunt with 2 lotus and a small bowl. Their footsteps stirred the dry dust of the path, but even that dust seemed reluctant to rise too high in the warm air. The well stood sturdy and circular, its stone rim worn smooth by generations of hands. A rope hung loosely over the wooden pulley, creaking faintly in the breeze. The water below was deep and cool, holding the sky's reflection in its still surface. They set the utensils down carefully on the flat stones beside the well. For a moment, no one spoke. The aunt lowered the bucket slowly into the well. The rope slipped through her hands with a soft whispering sound until a distant splash echoed upward. She waited, then began pulling it back, hand over hand, steady and unhurried. When the bucket reached the top, droplets spilled over the rim, darkening the stones beneath. The grandmother dipped a small cloth into the water and began to rub the surface of the thali. Circular motions. Slow. Repeated. The brass, dulled by months of daily use, gradually began to respond. A faint glow appeared where her fingers had passed. Beside her, another neighbor joined, carrying ash from her kitchen stove. She sprinkled a small amount onto a damp cloth and handed it over. The ash worked gently against the metal, lifting away the stains without harshness. The rhythmic sound of scrubbing blended with the distant hum of village life. A goat bleating somewhere far off, the faint murmur of children playing beyond the lane, the occasional flutter of a pigeon's wings. Each utensil received the same attention. The lotus were turned upside down, rinsed carefully, then wiped dry with the end of a sari. The small bowl was polished along its rim until it reflected not just light, but the faint shapes of faces leaning above it. The grandmother paused occasionally to inspect her work, tilting the plate toward the sun. If she spotted a faint smudge, she returned to it patiently. There was no irritation, no rush to finish. The act itself felt meaningful. The well's pulley gave another soft creak as more water was drawn. A young girl approached quietly, carrying a folded cloth. She watched for a moment, then knelt beside the women, taking one of the smaller spoons and polishing it with careful seriousness. No one instructed her. She simply joined. The air near the well felt cooler than the rest of the village. Shadows from nearby trees stretched across the ground, offering relief from the fading heat. The scent of wet stone and fresh water rose gently with each splash. As the brass began to shine, it seemed almost alive, worn gold catching the sunlight in soft flashes. The thali, now clean and bright, reflected the sky in a distorted circle. The lotus gleamed quietly, their curved sides holding the evening light like captured warmth. One by one, the utensils were placed upright on the stone ledge to dry. They stood in a neat row, glowing softly against the gray of the well's rim. For a brief moment, they resembled small golden sentinels waiting for their role in something sacred yet simple. The grandmother wiped her hands and looked at them with quiet approval. "These will do," she said gently. The others nodded. The bucket was lowered once more, not out of necessity, but habit. Water was poured over the stones, washing away the last traces of ash and dust. The well returned to its steady silence, as though pleased to have contributed. The women gathered the polished utensils carefully, wrapping them in clean cloth to protect their shine. As they rose and began walking back toward the house beneath the neem tree, the evening light followed them in long, soft shadows. Behind them, the well stood calm and unchanged. But in the fading sunlight, the brass they carried shimmered quietly, ready for the ritual that would soon unfold under the slow arrival of night. The light of the late afternoon slipped gently into the kitchen, turning the mud walls a soft shade of amber. The courtyard outside had grown quieter now, as if the village itself were taking a slow breath before evening. Inside, near the back wall where the floor remained cool even in warm weather, the heavy stone slab rested in its usual place. It had been there longer than anyone could remember. The grinding stone, smooth, wide, and slightly curved from years of use, waited without complaint. Beside it lay a smaller cylindrical stone, rounded at the edges by countless patient hands. The grandmother sat down carefully before it. She placed a small pile of whole spices onto the slab: cumin seeds, coriander seeds, a few dried red chilies, and a pinch of black pepper. Their colors lay muted against the gray stone: earthy browns, faded reds, pale golden grains. The scent was faint at first, barely noticeable. She sprinkled a few drops of water over them. Then, with both hands, she gripped the smaller stone and began to move it back and forth. The sound was slow and rhythmic: a soft scrape, a gentle press, a steady glide. The spices shifted under the weight, cracking softly. Their fragrance began to rise almost immediately, warm and familiar. Each motion carried quiet strength. The ant knelt nearby, watching the mixture change from whole seeds to coarse powder. She added another small handful when needed, careful not to overcrowd the stone. Nothing was rushed. The grinding followed a calm tempo, like a slow song without words. Outside the kitchen window, a breeze stirred the neem leaves again. Sunlight filtered through them in broken patterns, landing briefly on the stone slab before moving away. Dust motes floated lazily in the air, turning and drifting in the golden beam. The smell of the spices deepened. Cumin released its nutty warmth. Coriander softened into something almost sweet. The dried chilies offered a mild sharpness, though not enough to sting. The fragrance spread beyond the kitchen, slipping into the courtyard and mingling with the scent of marigolds and damp earth. The baby, resting inside the house, stirred faintly at the change in air. A small sigh escaped tiny lips, then quiet returned once more. The grandmother paused to gather the crushed mixture into the center of the slab. She ran her fingers lightly through it, testing its texture. Not too coarse. Not too fine. She nodded to herself and resumed grinding, this time pressing slightly harder to smooth the remaining fragments. The steady motion continued. There was something calming about the repetition: push forward, pull back, gather, press again. The stone responded faithfully, never hurried, never resistant. It had shaped countless meals over decades: festival dishes, ordinary lunches, comforting broths for the sick. Today, it prepared flavors for the evening: sweetened rice and warm milk. The ant began stirring milk in a pot set over a small flame nearby. The two rhythms, grinding and stirring, blended into a quiet harmony. Occasionally, they exchanged a few words, but most of the time, silence felt sufficient. From outside came the faint sound of a temple bell ringing in the distance. One slow chime. Then another. The evening was drawing nearer. The spices had now turned into a rich, fragrant paste. The grandmother scraped it carefully into a small bowl, wiping the slab clean with the edge of her palm. She rinsed the stone with a splash of water and set the smaller grinder upright to dry. The kitchen smelled warm and inviting. The air carried comfort rather than excitement. Nothing in the room felt dramatic or grand. Yet every action held quiet intention. Each crushed seed, each stirred spoonful, part of a simple chain of preparation. As the flame under the milk flickered gently, and the ground spices rested in their bowl, the kitchen settled back into calm. Outside, the sky shifted toward deeper shades of orange. Inside, the stone slab sat still once more, its work complete for now, while the evening slowly approached, bringing with it the promise of whispered names and soft lamplight. At the far end of the village lane, where the road narrowed and curved gently toward the fields, sat the tailor in his shaded doorway. His small shop was not truly a shop at all, but a simple open front room with a low wooden platform and a hand-operated sewing machine that had been with him for many years. The afternoon light filtered in softly, touching the iron wheel of the machine and making it glint faintly. A thin curtain of faded cloth hung to one side, stirring slightly in the breeze. The air smelled of cotton fabric and warm dust. He adjusted his spectacles and lifted the small white garment resting in his lap. It was meant for the newborn. Nothing elaborate. No heavy embroidery. Just soft cotton stitched with careful precision. The grandmother had brought the cloth earlier that morning, requesting that the seams be reinforced and the edges neatly folded. It should sit gently on the child, she had said. No rough corners. The tailor nodded at the memory. He ran his fingers along the fabric once more, feeling for unevenness. Satisfied, he placed it beneath the needle of his sewing machine. His foot pressed lightly on the pedal, and the wheel began to turn. Tack tack tack, tack tack tack. The sound was steady and unhurried, blending with the soft murmur of the village beyond his doorway. A bullock cart rolled slowly past, its wooden wheels creaking rhythmically. Two boys chased each other down the lane, their laughter fading as they turned a corner. Somewhere nearby, someone was pounding grain with a wooden pestle. The tailor's hands moved calmly. He guided the cloth through the machine, keeping the line straight, his movements practiced and precise. The thread followed obediently, binding two pieces of fabric into one. There was no need for speed. The ceremony would begin only after sunset. He paused to snip a loose thread with small steel scissors. The tiny sound of metal meeting thread seemed almost ceremonial in its neatness. A neighbor stopped briefly at the doorway. "You are finishing the baby's clothes?" she asked softly. "Yes," he replied, without lifting his eyes from the fabric. "Before evening." She nodded and continued on her way. The tailor leaned back slightly, stretching his fingers before returning to work. The sunlight had shifted now, casting longer shadows across the floor. Dust motes floated lazily through the beam of light that entered from the open front. On a wooden peg behind him hung other garments waiting their turn, a blouse, a shirt, a school uniform with one sleeve still unfinished. But for now, his attention belonged to the small white garment. He folded the edges inward with care, pressing them flat with his thumb before guiding them under the needle again. The machine's rhythm remained constant, neither hurried nor slow, simply steady. Tack tack tack, tack tack tack. The fabric seemed to grow softer with each stitch. When the main seams were complete, he lifted the garment gently and turned it inside out to inspect his work. The stitches ran in a clean, straight line. No puckering. No loose threads. He nodded once, quietly satisfied. But he was not done yet. From a small tin box beside him, he selected a thin strip of pale blue thread. It was not meant for decoration, only for a tiny reinforcing stitch along the collar. He threaded the needle carefully, squinting slightly as he guided the thread through its small eye. Then, setting the machine aside, he stitched by hand. Each movement of the needle was slow and deliberate. In and out. Pull tight. Smooth the fabric. In and out again. The blue thread added the faintest hint of color, barely noticeable, yet present. As he worked, the sky outside deepened toward gold. The lane grew quieter. The bullock cart had passed. The children's voices had softened. When the final stitch was secured, he tied a small knot and trimmed the thread close to the cloth. The garment was complete. He folded it neatly, pressing it once with his palms to smooth it flat. Then he wrapped it in a clean piece of muslin and placed it beside him, ready to be delivered. The tailor sat for a moment longer in the doorway, listening to the fading sounds of afternoon. The sewing machine rested silent now. The breeze lifted the curtain again, brushing lightly against the wooden frame. Soon, he would walk the short distance to the house beneath the neem tree. But for now, he allowed the quiet to settle, content that his unhurried stitching had become part of the gentle preparation for the evening ahead. As the sun dipped lower and the sky softened into pale shades of orange and rose, the village began to move toward evening. The heat of the day loosened its hold, and a mild coolness settled into the air. Shadows stretched long across the narrow lanes, and the neem tree in the courtyard cast a gentle, trembling shade over the prepared space. Inside the house, the baby slept quietly, unaware of the small stirrings beginning outside. The first neighbor arrived just before sunset. She walked slowly through the gate, adjusting the end of her sari over her head. In her hands, she carried a small steel container wrapped in a cloth. She did not call out loudly. Instead, she stepped softly into the courtyard and greeted the grandmother with a nod. "For the child," she said, offering the container. Inside were a handful of rice grains and a few pieces of jaggery, nothing extravagant, nothing rare. But the offering was given with steady hands and a calm smile. The grandmother accepted it with both palms, murmuring quiet thanks. Soon after, another family entered the courtyard. The elderly man who had been trimming his bamboo basket earlier now carried a small woven mat under his arm. For the baby to sit on one day, he explained gently. The mat smelled faintly of dried grass and sun. He placed it near the wall, careful not to disturb the arrangement of the wooden stool and the clay lamp. Children followed behind him, walking more slowly than usual, their usual energy softened by the mood of the evening. One child held a tiny cloth bundle containing 2 handmade cotton toys, small stuffed shapes stitched unevenly but lovingly. They laid the bundle beside the cradle without a word. From the lane, more figures appeared in the fading light. A woman brought a small bottle of homemade oil, sealed with a piece of cloth tied tightly at the top. Another neighbor offered a folded length of plain cotton fabric. A young man carried a clay pot filled with fresh milk, still warm from the evening milking. No one arrived empty-handed, yet no one brought anything grand. The gifts were modest, practical, and thoughtful, each one reflecting the quiet life of the village. Rice from one household. Milk from another. Cloth from a third. All gathered not in competition, but in simple contribution. The courtyard slowly filled, though it never felt crowded. People found places along the low walls or settled onto the ground. Conversations remained hushed. Laughter, when it came, was gentle and brief. The marigold garland above the doorway glowed softly in the last light of day, its petals bright against the deepening sky. The tailor arrived carrying the neatly wrapped white garment. He handed it to the grandmother without ceremony. She unfolded it briefly, running her fingers along the collar where the faint blue stitching rested. She nodded in approval and placed it carefully inside. The clay lamp near the stool remained unlit, waiting for the right moment. The neem leaves rustled faintly overhead. Somewhere beyond the courtyard, a cow lowed as it was led back to its shed. The temple bell in the distance rang once, slow and resonant, signaling the approach of evening prayers. Inside the house, the mother rose carefully, holding the baby close. She stepped toward the doorway, pausing for a moment as her eyes adjusted to the soft light outside. The gathered neighbors turned their heads gently, their expressions warm but restrained. No one rushed forward. They simply watched as she sat down beneath the neem tree, the cradle swaying slightly beside her. The baby stirred, tiny fingers curling, then settled again against her chest. The simple gifts lay arranged along the wall: rice, milk, cloth, toys, oil, small offerings reflecting shared lives and shared rhythms. The sky deepened into violet. A faint hush settled over the courtyard, not of silence alone, but of anticipation that did not press or demand. The village had arrived, carrying its modest gifts and its steady presence. Soon, the lamp would be lit. And in that soft glow, beneath the patient neem tree, the ceremony would begin. Not with grandeur, but with the quiet fullness of neighbors gathered together. The sky had turned the color of fading embers, a soft blend of amber and violet stretched gently above the village. The air cooled steadily, carrying with it the scent of evening fires being lit in distant kitchens. Along the narrow road that led from the small temple at the edge of the fields, a solitary figure walked at an unhurried pace. The priest moved slowly down the dusty path. His sandals pressed lightly into the earth, leaving faint footprints that the evening breeze would soon soften. In one hand, he carried a small cloth bag containing prayer beads, a folded sheet of paper, and a thin wooden stylus. In the other, he held a brass bell no larger than his palm, wrapped carefully to prevent it from ringing too soon. The road was quiet at this hour. A pair of bullocks, already tied near their shed, flicked their tails lazily as he passed. A dog lifted its head from beneath a cart, watched him for a moment, then settled back down. The fields on either side of the road stretched calmly into the distance, their crops rustling faintly in the gentle wind. He did not rush his steps. The naming ceremony would begin only after the lamp was lit and the first stars appeared. There was time. There was always time in the village for rituals done properly. As he walked, he murmured a few verses softly to himself, not loudly enough for others to hear. The words blended with the soft rhythm of his breathing and the faint crunch of sand beneath his sandals. His white cotton dhoti moved lightly with each step, brushing against his ankles. At the bend in the road, he paused briefly. From that point, the house beneath the neem tree became visible in the distance. A marigold garland glowed faintly above the doorway, its orange petals catching the last of the daylight. A few figures could be seen seated in the courtyard, their shapes calm and still. The priest adjusted the edge of his shawl over his shoulder and resumed walking. Children playing near the lane noticed him first. They straightened slightly, their games quieting without instruction. One of them whispered, "He has come." The words traveled no further than a few feet, yet the feeling spread gently through the air. An elderly woman passing by joined her palms respectfully as he crossed her path. He nodded in return, his expression serene but not severe. There was no dramatic arrival, no grand announcement, just steady footsteps on familiar ground. The sky deepened further as he neared the courtyard gate. The dust beneath his feet rose lightly with each step, swirling briefly before settling again. The faint sound of evening birds returning to their nests drifted overhead. A single temple bell rang far behind him at the small shrine he had left, echoing softly before fading into the quiet. When he reached the entrance of the house, he paused once more. Inside the courtyard, the clay lamp still waited to be lit. The brass utensils, polished and arranged, reflected the last light of day. Neighbors sat along the walls, their conversations hushed. The mother held the baby beneath the neem tree, rocking gently. The grandmother rose slowly to greet him. She did not speak loudly. Instead, she bowed her head slightly and gestured for him to enter. The priest stepped through the gate, his movements deliberate and calm. He placed his cloth bag carefully beside the wooden stool prepared for him. The brass bell was unwrapped and set beside the silver bowl of rice grains. He glanced briefly at the sky above the neem branches, where the first faint star had begun to appear. The air in the courtyard felt still now, not heavy, but attentive. The priest sat cross-legged on the woven mat laid out for him. His posture was straight, his face composed. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, centering himself in the quiet. No one spoke. The dusty road behind him returned to silence, holding only the fading imprint of his footsteps. The evening had fully arrived. And beneath the neem tree, with neighbors gathered and gifts resting along the walls, the ceremony waited patiently for its first whispered word. The evening had settled fully now, wrapping the village in a soft indigo hush. The first stars shimmered faintly above the neem tree, and the courtyard glowed in the quiet light of the newly lit clay lamp. Its small flame flickered steadily, casting gentle shadows that swayed across the mud walls. In the kitchen, slightly apart from the gathering, the large iron pot rested upon a low clay stove. The aunt knelt beside it, carefully adjusting the firewood beneath. The thin sticks caught slowly, their tips glowing red before small flames licked upward. The pot, darkened from years of use, seemed almost solemn in its presence, heavy, dependable, patient. Fresh milk had been poured into it not long ago. Now, as the fire strengthened, the surface of the milk began to tremble gently. Tiny bubbles formed at the edges, clinging to the sides of the pot before slipping back into the white stillness. The aunt held a long wooden ladle and stirred slowly, drawing circles through the liquid. The sound was soft and comforting. A faint warmth spread through the kitchen air, carrying with it the creamy scent of milk heating gradually. It mingled with the earlier aroma of ground spices, creating a fragrance both simple and full. The grandmother entered quietly, carrying the small bowl of freshly ground spice paste. She added just a pinch into the warming milk. The color did not change much, but the scent deepened, turning slightly sweet and earthy. They did not speak much. The steady stirring continued, round and round, without hurry. The milk surface rippled gently with each movement of the ladle. A thin layer of cream began forming along the top, folding softly at the edges like delicate cloth. Outside in the courtyard, the priest arranged his prayer items in silence. The neighbors waited calmly. A faint murmur of low conversation drifted through the doorway, blending with the crackle of firewood. The aunt leaned closer to the pot, watching carefully. The milk was rising now, not suddenly, but gradually, as if it too were aware of the importance of the moment. Small bubbles gathered toward the center, expanding slowly. The aunt lifted the ladle, stirring just enough to keep the surface from spilling over. The iron pot absorbed and held the heat steadily. It had served countless meals before, simple dinners, festival sweets, nourishing broths. Tonight, it prepared milk that would be shared after the child received a name. The grandmother sprinkled in a spoonful of sugar, stirring it gently until it dissolved completely. She tasted a small drop from the ladle, nodding once in approval. "Just right," she whispered. The fire crackled softly beneath. Outside, a child's quiet giggle floated briefly through the air before fading again. The clay lamp flickered in response to a passing breeze, but its flame did not waver. The milk thickened slightly as it continued to warm. Steam rose in slow spirals, drifting upward and disappearing into the darker ceiling beams. The kitchen felt cocooned, separate from the courtyard yet connected by scent and sound. The ant shifted the firewood carefully, lowering the flame to prevent the milk from rising too quickly. Patience was key. Nothing in the village was ever meant to boil over in haste. Finally, when the milk reached the perfect point, hot but calm, fragrant but not overflowing, she removed the pot gently from the fire. The flames beneath softened into glowing embers. The iron pot rested on a thick cloth placed on the floor. Steam continued to rise lazily, carrying warmth into the cooling night. The surface of the milk stilled, reflecting faint flickers of firelight like a small white moon. The grandmother covered the pot loosely with a lid, allowing it to breathe. Soon, after the name had been whispered and written in grains of rice, this milk would be poured into small cups and passed from hand to hand. It would warm palms and throats, sweet and comforting. For now, it waited quietly, just as the village waited. In the soft glow of lamplight, beneath the patient watch of the neem tree and the steady stars above, the evening moved forward in gentle steps. And the large iron pot, having done its work, rested in calm readiness for the simple sharing that would follow the sacred whisper of a name. The night had not fully settled yet, but the sky was deepening steadily into shades of blue and violet. A thin crescent moon had risen quietly above the neem tree, watching over the courtyard with a pale, patient glow. The clay lamp near the wooden stool flickered softly, its flame steady despite the gentle evening breeze. Near the entrance of the house, just beneath the marigold garland, the grandmother stood holding a small bundle of fresh mango leaves. They had been plucked earlier in the afternoon, chosen carefully, each leaf smooth, green, and unblemished. Their scent was faint but clean, carrying a subtle freshness that lingered in the air. The baby's uncle stood on a low wooden stool to help her reach the top of the doorway. He held a thin cotton string between his fingers while she arranged the leaves along it. One by one, she pierced each stem gently and slid it onto the string, spacing them evenly. The leaves hung downward in a neat row, their pointed ends swaying lightly. No one hurried them. The neighbors seated in the courtyard watched quietly. A few children tilted their heads upward, observing the slow movement of hands above the doorway. The priest remained seated on his mat, his eyes lowered, waiting for the final preparations to complete. The uncle adjusted his footing carefully, steadying himself against the wall. The grandmother lifted the string of mango leaves higher. A little to the left, she murmured softly. He shifted slightly. The leaves brushed against the wooden frame before settling into place. Their green color stood out against the faded blue paint of the house, bright yet simple. For a moment, they both paused. The leaves rustled gently in the breeze, producing a soft whispering sound that blended with the faint murmur of voices and the occasional chirp of night insects. The scent of boiled milk and ground spices drifted faintly from the kitchen, warm and comforting. The grandmother tied one end of the string securely around a small nail hammered long ago into the doorframe. She checked the knot twice, pulling gently to ensure it held firm. The uncle tied the other end with equal care. When they stepped back, the mango leaves formed a modest canopy beneath the marigolds. Together, the garland of orange flowers and the line of green leaves created a quiet welcome, not only for the neighbors gathered inside, but for blessings, for good wishes, for the gentle future that lay ahead for the newborn child. The grandmother folded her hands briefly toward the doorway, her head bowed just slightly. The uncle stepped down from the stool and placed it aside. The courtyard felt complete now. Above, the neem branches swayed lightly, their shadows dancing faintly along the mud walls. The clay lamp's flame shimmered, casting warm circles of light across the brass utensils arranged nearby. The silver bowl of rice grains waited patiently on the wooden stool. Inside the house, the mother adjusted the baby's wrap and stepped toward the doorway. As she crossed beneath the mango leaves, they brushed softly against the air above her head, their presence almost like a blessing in motion. The baby stirred gently, making a faint sound before settling again against her shoulder. A hush settled over the gathered neighbors. The tying of the mango leaves marked the final quiet gesture before the ritual itself. There would be no more sweeping, no more stirring, no more arranging. Everything now rested in readiness. The priest lifted his gaze toward the doorway, noticing the fresh leaves swaying lightly in the moonlit air. He nodded almost imperceptibly, as though acknowledging that the time had come. The grandmother returned to her place beside the wooden stool, smoothing her sari and glancing once more at the neatly hung leaves. Their green shapes moved softly against the darkening sky. The night had fully arrived. And beneath the simple line of mango leaves above the doorway, the courtyard held its breath, waiting for the sacred whisper that would soon give the child a name. Earlier that day, before the mango leaves were tied, before the priest began his slow walk down the dusty road, the house had rested in the long, golden stillness of afternoon. It was the quietest part of the day. The sun had climbed high and poured its warmth over the rooftops, pressing gently against the mud walls and warming the courtyard floor. Outside, even the village animals had grown still. The buffalo stood in shaded corners. The stray dog beneath the cart had stretched out fully, eyes closed. The fields beyond shimmered faintly in the heat. Inside the house beneath the neem tree, the air was calm and heavy with sunlight. A thin curtain hung over the small window, shifting lazily whenever a breeze managed to slip through. Dust motes drifted in the golden beam of light that fell across the room, turning slowly as if suspended in time. On a low wooden cot, the baby slept. Wrapped carefully in soft cotton cloth, the child lay on their side, one tiny fist resting near their cheek. Their breathing was steady. Small chest rising and falling in a rhythm so gentle it almost seemed unreal. Every now and then, their lips moved slightly, as though forming a dream too quiet for the world to hear. The mother sat nearby, her back supported by folded quilts. She had tried to rest as well, but her eyes opened often, drawn again and again to the sleeping form beside her. She watched the baby's eyelashes, fine and barely visible in the sunlight. She noticed the faint curve of the ear, the softness of the hair. Every small detail felt important, worth memorizing. Outside the room, the grandmother's footsteps moved slowly across the courtyard. The faint sound of water being poured, of spices being sorted, drifted in softly, distant enough not to disturb the sleep. The baby did not stir. Even when a cart rolled past the house, its wheels creaking faintly against the dusty road, the child remained wrapped in quiet dreams. A pigeon fluttered onto the roof and cooed once. Somewhere, a child laughed in another courtyard. Still, the baby slept. The afternoon stretched long and unbroken. A breeze finally found its way through the neem leaves, slipping through the window and brushing lightly across the baby's forehead. The mother reached out instinctively, adjusting the cloth just slightly, ensuring no chill touched delicate skin. The baby responded with the smallest sigh. One tiny foot slipped free from the wrap, toes curling and uncurling slowly. The mother smiled faintly and tucked the cloth back into place, careful not to wake the child. The house itself seemed to move more softly around the sleeping infant. Doors were opened and closed without noise. Utensils were placed gently on shelves. Conversations were spoken in lower tones. It was as if the entire household had quietly agreed to protect this pocket of rest. The afternoon sun shifted gradually across the floor, moving inch by inch toward the far wall. Shadows lengthened. The golden light softened into something warmer, less intense. For a brief moment, the baby's eyelids fluttered. A faint crease formed between the brows, then disappeared. Perhaps a dream had changed, from warmth to coolness, from silence to distant sound. A small hand stretched outward before settling again near the chest. The breathing remained slow. The mother closed her eyes at last, allowing herself a few moments of rest, comforted by the steady rhythm beside her. Outside, the world continued its quiet preparations, brass being polished, spices being ground, gifts being wrapped in cloth. But inside that small sunlit room, time felt suspended. The baby slept through the long afternoon, unaware of the gentle excitement gathering beyond the doorway. Unaware that by evening, neighbors would sit beneath the neem tree, that a priest would chant softly, that a name would be whispered into waiting ears. For now, there was only breath, warmth, and the steady hum of a village day. And in that calm, golden stillness, the child rested. Held not just by cotton cloth, but by the quiet watchfulness of an entire home. As the afternoon light softened and slowly began its descent toward evening, the house beneath the neem tree filled with a quieter kind of activity, not of hands preparing or utensils being arranged, but of voices lowered and thoughts carefully weighed. The baby still slept, wrapped gently in cotton cloth, unaware that their future was being discussed in soft murmurs just beyond the doorway. In the shaded corner of the courtyard, the grandmother sat cross-legged on the woven mat. Beside her rested the folded piece of paper she had taken from the old wooden chest earlier that day. The edges were yellowed, the ink slightly faded, but the names written upon it remained clear. The baby's father joined her quietly. He did not sit immediately. Instead, he stood for a moment beneath the neem tree, looking at the leaves as they shifted gently against the sky. The breeze moved through them in a steady whisper, as if the tree itself carried opinions. Finally, he lowered himself onto the mat. The grandmother unfolded the paper slowly. The names were simple, traditional names that had passed through generations. Some had belonged to ancestors long remembered. Others had never been chosen, waiting patiently on the page for their time. They spoke in hushed tones. "What about your grandfather's name?" the grandmother suggested softly. The father considered it. He traced one finger lightly along the edge of the mat, thinking. "It carries strength," he replied. "But perhaps it is too heavy for such small shoulders." The grandmother nodded, not offended. A faint clink of brass came from the kitchen where the aunt adjusted the polished utensils. The smell of warm milk drifted faintly through the courtyard. The father leaned forward slightly, reading another name on the list. He spoke it aloud, just above a whisper. The sound lingered briefly in the air, then dissolved into the rustling leaves. The grandmother tilted her head. "It is gentle," she said. "It sounds like morning." They both smiled faintly at that. Inside, the mother listened without interrupting. She did not step outside, but her attention rested carefully on the murmured conversation. From her place near the doorway, she softly repeated one of the names to herself, testing its sound against the baby's quiet breathing. The baby stirred slightly, as if responding to the vibration of voices. Another name was mentioned. This one had a softer ending, almost like a sigh. The father repeated it twice, adjusting the tone, listening for how it felt in his mouth. The grandmother closed her eyes briefly, imagining it being called across the courtyard years from now. Outside the gate, a neighbor paused, hearing fragments of the discussion but not intruding. The evening light had deepened now, turning the sky into muted shades of lavender and blue. The priest sat quietly at the edge of the courtyard, not offering suggestions, but aware of the slow weighing of syllables. He knew that once the name was chosen, it would be written in rice and whispered 3 times. But the choosing belonged to the family. The grandmother folded the paper again, then unfolded it once more. She did not rush the decision. Each name was treated with respect, considered, spoken softly, allowed to linger. A faint sound escaped the baby. Not quite a cry, not quite a sigh. The mother adjusted the wrap gently, her fingers brushing the child's cheek. The father rose and stepped inside for a moment. He looked down at the sleeping face, studying it carefully. The tiny brows, the faint curve of the lips, the peaceful expression untouched by worry. He whispered one of the names again, just to himself. It seemed to fit. He returned to the courtyard and sat beside the grandmother once more. The neem leaves rustled overhead. The clay lamp flickered gently as someone added a drop of oil. The gathered neighbors spoke in low voices along the wall, giving space to the family's quiet decision. At last, the father leaned closer to the grandmother and spoke a single name clearly, though still softly. The grandmother repeated it. They did not announce it yet. The priest would ask during the ritual. But in that moment, between the fading light and the first steady stars, the choice settled gently into place. The baby continued to sleep, unaware that the softest of whispers had just shaped the sound by which the world would one day call them. The courtyard had grown quieter as night settled more deeply over the village. The sky above was now a deep, endless blue, scattered with small steady stars. The crescent moon hung gently between the branches of the neem tree, casting a pale glow over the prepared space below. The clay lamp near the wooden stool flickered calmly, its flame steady and patient. Beneath the neem tree, slightly apart from the gathered neighbors, the baby's father sat alone. He had moved there after the whispered discussions of names had ended. The choice had been made softly, without announcement, resting carefully within him like a small, glowing ember. Now he sat cross-legged on the cool earth. His hands rested loosely on his knees. His shoulders were relaxed, but his gaze was fixed somewhere beyond the courtyard wall. not looking at anything specific, just allowing his thoughts to move slowly through him. The neem leaves above rustled gently. Their sound was steady, almost like breathing. From time to time, a leaf loosened and drifted downward, landing softly near his feet. He did not move to brush it away. The courtyard carried low murmurs, neighbors speaking in quiet tones, the faint clink of a brass cup being adjusted, the soft shuffle of someone shifting their seat. But none of it disturbed the father's stillness. He was thinking. Not of the ceremony alone, but of everything that would follow it. The small name that would soon be whispered into rice grains would one day be called across fields. It would be written on school slates. It would be spoken in joy, perhaps even in anger. It would carry weight, laughter, tears, stories. He breathed in slowly. The scent of boiled milk and ground spices drifted faintly through the air. Somewhere in the distance, a cow shifted in its shed. A night bird called once, then fell silent. The father glanced toward the doorway where the mango leaves hung in a neat green line. They swayed gently in the evening breeze, brushing lightly against the wooden frame. Inside, he could hear the faintest movement of the baby. A soft sigh. His expression softened. He remembered the moment earlier that afternoon when he had leaned over the sleeping child and whispered the chosen name for the first time. The way it had felt, unfamiliar yet fitting. Light, yet steady. He let the sound of it pass silently through his thoughts again. The priest adjusted his shawl quietly across the courtyard, waiting. The grandmother sat near the wooden stool, hands folded loosely in her lap. The mother remained inside for a few more moments, holding the baby close. Time did not rush them. The father reached down and pressed his palm lightly against the earth beneath him. The ground was cool now, holding the memory of the day's warmth. This was the same earth that had held him as a child. The same courtyard where he had once run barefoot. The same neem tree beneath which he had listened to his own name being called. The breeze moved again, brushing lightly across his face. He closed his eyes for a brief moment. There was no grand speech forming in his mind. No dramatic thoughts. Just a quiet awareness that something small and significant was about to take place. Something that would ripple outward through years not yet imagined. A child's name. Simple. Ordinary. And yet powerful in its gentleness. He opened his eyes as the mother stepped into the courtyard, the baby cradled in her arms. The soft lamplight touched the child's face, illuminating tiny features with warm gold. The father rose slowly from beneath the neem tree. He brushed a stray leaf from his shoulder and stepped forward to sit beside his family. The quiet contemplation beneath the tree had steadied him. The stars above remained silent witnesses. And as he took his place near the wooden stool and the waiting silver bowl of rice, the father carried with him not just the chosen name, but the quiet strength that would guide it into the world. The night had deepened, but the ceremony had not yet begun. The courtyard held a soft expectancy, like a held breath that did not strain. The stars shimmered gently above, and the neem tree stood as it always had, patient and unmoving. Near the doorway, against the cool mud-plastered wall, rested the small wooden cradle. It had been brought down earlier from the storage loft, its surface carrying the faint scent of old wood and time. The cradle was not new. It had held other infants many years ago, cousins, siblings, perhaps even the father himself. Its curved runners were smooth from quiet rocking. Its sides were carved simply, with shallow patterns of flowers and leaves. The grandmother approached it first. She ran her fingers slowly along its edge, tracing the familiar grooves. The wood felt dry and slightly cool beneath her touch. She nodded softly, as though greeting an old companion. A folded cotton cloth lay nearby, freshly washed and dried in the afternoon sun. The mother had prepared it carefully, shaking it free of dust and smoothing it with her palms until not a single crease remained. Now she stepped forward and laid the cloth inside the cradle. She spread it gently, tucking the corners in with slow, deliberate movements. The cotton was pale and soft, and it settled into the cradle like a quiet cloud. No one rushed her. Even the faint murmurs in the courtyard seemed to pause while she worked. The father moved closer. He lifted the cradle slightly to check its balance. The wooden runners rocked once, twice, producing a soft, rhythmic creak. The sound was not sharp or jarring. It was low and steady, like the turning of an old door that had opened many times before. He adjusted its position so that it faced slightly toward the center of the courtyard, where the wooden stool and silver bowl of rice waited. A small pillow, stitched by the tailor earlier in the week, was placed at one end. It was modest, filled lightly with cotton, its edges sewn with careful, even stitches. The grandmother fluffed it gently, pressing her palm against it to test its softness. Satisfied, she stepped back. The lamplight flickered nearby, casting soft shadows across the cradle's curved frame. The carved flower pattern seemed to shift in the moving light, as though remembering the children who had once rested there. The breeze stirred again. It moved through the mango leaves above the doorway, then brushed across the cradle's side. The cloth inside lifted slightly and then settled again. The movement was so delicate it almost seemed like breathing. Inside the house, the baby made a small sound. Not a cry, just a gentle murmur of sleep. The mother paused, listening. Then she entered the house quietly and returned a moment later with the child cradled in her arms. The baby's tiny hand rested against her shoulder, fingers curled loosely. She did not place the baby in the cradle yet. Instead, she stood beside it for a long moment, looking down at the small prepared space. The cradle was empty, but ready. It waited without impatience. The father stood beside her. He looked at the cradle too, at its worn wood, its steady shape, its simplicity. It was not decorated with bright colors or polish to shine. It carried no grandeur. And yet it felt solid, dependable. A place to rest. A place to grow. The priest adjusted his shawl quietly from where he sat. The neighbors remained seated along the courtyard walls, their silhouettes calm and still. Everything seemed prepared now. The mother lowered the baby slowly into the cradle. The cotton cloth cradled the child gently, forming small folds around the tiny body. The pillow supported the baby's head, and for a moment, there was complete stillness. Then the father reached out and gave the cradle the smallest push. It rocked once. Then again. The soft creaking returned, rhythmic and even. The baby shifted slightly but did not wake. A tiny breath rose and fell. The grandmother smiled faintly. The cradle continued its slow movement, forward, back, matching the quiet rhythm of the night itself. Above them, the stars remained bright. The lamp flame steadied. The breeze moved gently through the neem leaves. The small wooden cradle, prepared with care and patience, now held its newest occupant, rocking softly, as if welcoming the child into the long, quiet story of the village. The cradle rocked slowly in the center of the courtyard, its curved runners tracing the same small path again and again. The baby's breathing remained soft and even, rising and falling beneath the pale cotton cloth. The night had settled fully now. The air felt cooler against the skin, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and extinguished cooking fires. Most of the village had grown quiet. A few lanterns still glowed behind shuttered windows, but the loud sounds of the day had long faded into memory. The father sat beside the cradle, his hand resting lightly on its edge to guide its motion. The mother remained close, her posture relaxed but attentive. The grandmother watched from her place near the wooden stool, her eyes half closed, as though listening to something far beyond the courtyard walls. And then it came. Soft at first. Almost uncertain. A distant bell. The sound floated through the night air, carried gently from the small temple at the edge of the village. It was not loud or urgent. It did not demand attention. Instead, it arrived like a ripple on still water. Clear, rounded, and patient. One slow chime. Then another. The priest lifted his head slightly, recognizing the familiar rhythm. The evening prayer had begun at the temple, just as it did every night. Though only a few villagers would be there in person, the sound of the bells traveled freely, reaching fields, courtyards, and sleeping homes alike. The father paused the cradle for a moment, listening. The bell rang again, steady and calm. Each note lingered in the air before fading gently into silence. The pauses between the chimes were just as meaningful as the sound itself. The neem leaves overhead trembled softly in the breeze. The bell's tone seemed to settle into the courtyard, blending with the quiet breathing of the baby and the faint flicker of the lamp flame. It felt as though the entire village was breathing in the same slow rhythm. The mother closed her eyes for a brief moment. The sound reminded her of countless evenings, walking home at dusk, carrying water from the well, watching smoke curl from kitchen fires while the bells rang in the distance. It had always been there, a steady presence marking the end of each day. Tonight, it felt different. Tonight, it seemed to be marking a beginning. The priest folded his hands loosely in his lap, not yet beginning the naming ritual. There was no need to hurry. The temple bells would complete their measured sequence before silence returned. The cradle resumed its gentle rocking. Forward. Back. Forward. Back. The baby stirred faintly, then settled again, as though the distant chimes were part of a familiar lullaby. The small chest rose and fell with quiet certainty. Another series of bells rang out, slightly quicker now, but still soft. Their sound carried across the fields, over sleeping cattle, past mud walls and thatched roofs. It wove through the night air without disturbance. The grandmother whispered a small prayer under her breath. Not loudly. Not formally. Just a simple acknowledgement of gratitude, for the child, for the family, for the steady rhythm of days that continued without spectacle. The father looked upward briefly. The sky seemed even wider in the presence of the bell's fading echo. The stars appeared unchanged, silent witnesses to countless nights before this one. The final chime rang. It lingered for a long moment, thinner now, dissolving slowly into the dark. And then there was quiet again. Not an empty quiet, but a full one. A quiet that felt complete. The priest cleared his throat gently, signaling that the time for the ceremony was near. The silver bowl of rice waited patiently on the wooden stool. The oil lamp flickered once and steadied. The father leaned forward and touched the cradle lightly, stilling its motion. The baby slept on, unaware of the distant bells that had just blessed the night with their calm presence. The village rested. The temple doors would close soon. And in the courtyard, beneath the neem tree and the fading echo of sacred chimes, the family prepared to speak a name into the quiet air. The silence that followed the temple bells was not empty for long. It held for a few gentle breaths, then shifted. From the far side of the courtyard, one of the older women cleared her throat softly. She adjusted the end of her sari over her shoulder and glanced toward the grandmother, who gave a small nod of encouragement. And then, in a voice low and unhurried, she began to sing. The melody was simple. It did not rise high or fall sharply. It moved in a small circle of notes, returning again and again to the same gentle pattern. The words were old, older than anyone sitting there, passed down through countless ceremonies, carried in memory rather than written anywhere. Another woman joined her. Their voices did not try to outshine one another. They blended easily, like threads woven into the same cloth. The song spoke of new life, of morning light, of tiny hands that would one day hold the world carefully. The cradle remained still for a moment, then the father gave it a slight push. Forward. Back. The rhythm of the rocking found its place within the song. Soon a third voice joined, softer than the others but steady. Then a fourth. The courtyard filled with the low hum of women singing together, their tones warm and repetitive. The repetition was soothing. The same lines returned again and again, each time sounding a little softer, a little deeper. There was no urgency to reach the end. The song did not hurry itself toward completion. It simply flowed. The baby shifted slightly in the cradle, as if listening in sleep. One tiny hand lifted, then rested again against the cotton cloth. The mother leaned closer, her face relaxed in the lamplight. She did not sing at first. She simply listened. The grandmother's voice, worn with age yet steady, joined the others. It carried a familiar strength, the same voice that had sung lullabies decades ago beneath this very neem tree. The song moved gently through the night air, rising just high enough to brush the mango leaves above the doorway. It did not disturb the stillness, it softened it. From somewhere beyond the courtyard wall, a dog barked once and then fell silent again. The stars remained steady overhead, indifferent yet constant. The women sang of blessings that were not grand. They sang of steady harvests. Of clear wells. Of shade during summer heat. Of kind neighbors. Of long, uneventful days filled with ordinary comfort. The melody circled back to its beginning once more. The father felt his shoulders loosen further. The sound of the singing eased something within him, something he had not realized was tense. The priest sat quietly, allowing the song to finish in its own time. He did not interrupt. Ritual could wait for music. The cradle rocked again. Forward. Back. The wooden runners made their soft, familiar creak, blending into the rhythm of the voices. The sound no longer felt separate, it felt like part of the song itself. The mother finally began to hum along, not loudly, but enough that her voice became part of the layered harmony. Her gaze rested on the baby's peaceful face. The oil lamp flickered gently, its flame steady despite the faint breeze. Shadows swayed along the courtyard walls, moving in time with the rocking cradle. The song repeated once more. And once more. Each repetition seemed softer than the last, like a wave receding gently from shore. Finally, one by one, the voices began to fade. The lead singer allowed the final note to stretch thin into the air. It trembled slightly, then disappeared into the night. Silence returned, but it felt warmer now. The courtyard seemed wrapped in the echo of those simple, repetitive folk lines. The baby slept peacefully within the cradle, breathing slow and even. The grandmother smiled faintly. The priest shifted forward slightly, preparing to begin the sacred words. But for a moment longer, everyone remained still, held gently by the lingering comfort of women's voices weaving calm into the quiet village night. The song had faded, but its warmth remained in the courtyard like a soft shawl draped across quiet shoulders. For a few moments, no one spoke. The baby lay still in the cradle, the cotton cloth rising and falling gently with each small breath. The neem leaves above stirred once, then settled. The air had grown cooler, and the darkness around the courtyard walls felt deeper now. The grandmother slowly rose to her feet. In her hand she carried a small brass plate. On it rested several tiny clay oil lamps, diyas, each filled carefully with oil earlier in the evening. Thin cotton wicks curved over their edges, waiting patiently. She moved with deliberate care. The father stood and stepped aside to give her space. The priest adjusted his shawl, watching quietly. The women gathered along the wall shifted slightly, their eyes following the soft glow of the single lamp already burning near the wooden stool. The grandmother bent near that flame first. She lowered the tip of one waiting wick toward the light. For a brief second, nothing happened. Then the wick caught, a small flicker, uncertain at first, then steady. A new flame was born. She lifted the freshly lit lamp and placed it near the entrance of the courtyard, beside the mango leaves that hung above the doorway. The light illuminated the green edges gently, giving them a golden outline. She returned to the brass plate. One by one, she lit the remaining lamps from the first flame. Each new wick hesitated for a breath, then flared softly into life. The flames were small, no larger than the tip of a finger. But together they began to shift the feeling of the courtyard. Darkness stepped back slightly. The grandmother placed a lamp near the neem tree's trunk. Another near the well's stone edge. One beside the cradle, though not too close. Another by the wooden stool holding the silver bowl of rice. The courtyard was not flooded with light. It remained dim, gentle, and calm. But now it shimmered faintly with multiple points of warm gold. The mother watched the flames carefully. The soft glow reflected in her eyes as she leaned slightly over the cradle. The baby's face seemed touched by a quiet halo, the tiny features softened by lamplight. The father stepped toward one of the lamps and shielded it briefly from a passing breeze. The flame wavered, bowed low, then stood upright again, resilient. The priest finally spoke, his voice low. "Light invites blessing," he said softly, not as instruction, but as quiet acknowledgement. No one responded aloud. The words were absorbed into the air like the faint scent of oil and cotton. The women adjusted their seating so that the circle formed naturally around the cradle and the wooden stool. Their faces were now visible in gentle flickers, shadows shifting across cheeks and foreheads. The oil lamps did not burn loudly. There was no crackle, no hiss. Only the faintest whisper as the oil fed the wicks. Occasionally, a tiny glow would brighten and then return to calm. A moth fluttered near one flame, circling curiously before drifting away into the dark. The breeze carried a hint of jasmine from somewhere beyond the courtyard wall. It mingled with the warm scent of oil and earth. The grandmother sat down once more, her work complete. She looked around the courtyard, at the glowing points of light, at the gathered neighbors, at the cradle resting gently between shadow and warmth. Everything felt ready. The father resumed his place beside the baby. He did not rock the cradle now. He allowed it to rest, still and steady in the soft radiance of the lamps. The priest leaned slightly toward the silver bowl of rice. The oil flames flickered gently, as though leaning in too. Above them, the stars continued their distant shining, but now the courtyard held its own small constellation of earthly light. And in that tender glow, beneath neem branches, among neighbors and quiet breaths, the moment for speaking a name drew ever closer. The courtyard had settled into a hushed anticipation. The small points of oil lamp light flickered gently across mud walls and the worn wooden beams of the house. Shadows stretched long beneath the neem tree, mingling with the soft shapes of neighbors sitting quietly along the walls. The baby lay still in the cradle, wrapped snugly in cotton cloth. Its chest rose and fell with slow, even breaths, seemingly in harmony with the gentle rhythm of the night. The priest, seated cross-legged near the silver bowl of rice, adjusted his shawl and cleared his throat softly. No one stirred. The gathered neighbors leaned slightly forward, their attention folded into the soft glow of the courtyard. Even the wind seemed to pause, holding its gentle sway over the neem leaves. He picked up the small brass bell that had rested beside him. Its surface reflected the flickering lamplight, warm and steady. With a careful twist of his wrist, he allowed the clapper to touch the metal just lightly, producing a clear, soft chime. The sound floated over the courtyard. It was not loud. It did not demand notice. Yet it carried authority, a gentle signal that the time had come. The chime was repeated 2 more times, each softer than the last, until it seemed to merge with the faint rustle of leaves overhead and the slow creak of the cradle's runners. The priest lowered his hands and opened the folded sheet of palm leaf paper he had brought. The inscriptions were simple, lines of blessings, syllables passed through generations. But each one carried weight in the softest form. He began to chant, quietly, deliberately. The rhythm was slow, measured. Words rolled from his lips without haste. Neighboring women repeated softly after him in barely audible whispers, their tones blending with his cadence. Each syllable echoed slightly in the open courtyard, stretching into the night and fading gently. The father leaned forward slightly, hands resting lightly on the edge of the cradle. He did not speak, did not move. Only listened. The mother, still holding the baby, swayed the cradle just barely, letting it respond to the priest's rhythm. A subtle scent of incense drifted from a small coil placed near the stool. Its fragrance mingled with the warm aroma of boiled milk and the faint, lingering smell of mango leaves hung above the doorway. The sensory layers of the courtyard, scent, light, sound, combined into a slow, deliberate harmony. The priest sprinkled a few grains of rice into the silver bowl in front of him. Each grain was touched with intention, a soft brush of fingers that seemed to echo the same patience visible throughout the day. The sound of the grains settling in the bowl was small but distinct, a quiet percussion in the otherwise still night. The neighbors continued to sit without moving. Their presence was calm, steady, like a living frame for the ritual. Even the children, who had earlier peeked curiously from corners, now watched with soft eyes, sensing the weight of the moment. The priest's voice did not rise or fall dramatically. It remained steady, almost hypnotic in its constancy. Slowly, he moved from one verse to the next, giving time for each syllable to breathe in the air, to settle around the walls and the small wooden cradle. Outside the courtyard, faint sounds of the village, a distant dog, the quiet hoot of an owl, the far-off rustling of straw roofs, were absorbed into the soft pulse of the ritual. Nothing interrupted it, nothing hurried it. The father, still leaning slightly toward the cradle, exhaled slowly. He felt each word, each chime, each flicker of lamp light settling into his mind and into the night itself. Forward. Back. The cradle rocked ever so slightly in rhythm with the soft, measured chant. The baby stirred lightly but did not wake. The ritual had begun, and yet it was slow, not hurried, not urgent. Every movement, every sound, every breath was deliberate, deliberate enough that time itself seemed to stretch gently across the courtyard. And beneath the neem tree, in the dim glow of oil lamps and the watchful presence of neighbors, the night held a steady, unbroken calm, the perfect frame for the first sacred whispers of a name. The courtyard had grown still under the soft glow of oil lamps. Shadows flickered gently across the mud walls, stretching slowly with each faint shift of the lamplight. The baby lay peacefully in the cradle, small chest rising and falling, surrounded by the quiet patience of the family and neighbors. The priest lifted the silver bowl of rice from the wooden stool. Each grain gleamed faintly in the warm lamplight, pale and steady. The bowl was heavy in his hands, not from weight alone, but from the centuries of quiet tradition it carried. He began. Each rice grain was set with measured care. One by one, they formed the shape of the first letter. The grains were arranged so that the outline was clear, the letter standing in gentle contrast against the wooden surface beneath. He did not rush, and there was no urgency. Each movement was deliberate, a slow meditation in motion. The father leaned forward slightly, observing the grains sliding into place. He felt each tiny white kernel, not just as food, but as a part of the child's first connection to the world, a name, sacred and deliberate, resting on simple grains of rice. A soft wind stirred the neem leaves overhead. The faint rustle seemed to harmonize with the deliberate tapping of the priest's fingers as he nudged a stray grain into position. One grain had rolled slightly out of line. He corrected it carefully, never hurried, never forceful. The mother leaned over, her hands clasped lightly, watching the first letter take form. The baby stirred faintly in the cradle, tiny fingers curling and uncurling, as if acknowledging the slow rhythm of the ritual. Neighbors remained seated along the walls, their faces calm in the lamplight. Some whispered softly to themselves, repeating the sound of the letter aloud in low tones, as though speaking it might give it strength. Others simply observed, letting their presence be enough. The priest paused after placing the final grain. The first letter stood clearly in delicate white against the wood, a quiet symbol of identity, of care, of the ritual unfolding in gentle time. He did not speak. No announcement was necessary. The first letter alone carried meaning, enough for the father, the grandmother, the mother, the neighbors, and perhaps even for the sleeping child, who remained unaware of the careful attention surrounding them. A single lamp flickered as if to mark the moment. The soft scent of rice mingled with the faint aroma of oil and boiled milk. The cradle rocked slightly in the evening breeze, its small creak aligning with the gentle stillness of the courtyard. The priest's hands rested lightly on the edge of the bowl. The ritual had begun in earnest. The first letter, written patiently in rice grains, would soon be followed by the next, each added with the same care, each carrying the weight of tradition and love. And beneath the neem tree, in the warm glow of lamplight, the courtyard held its breath, every small movement, every grain of rice, every quiet presence a part of the slow, sacred unfolding of a name. The first letter had been placed carefully in its line of rice grains, delicate and deliberate, resting quietly on the small wooden plank. The oil lamps flickered softly, casting gentle shadows across the courtyard walls and the worn wooden beams of the house. The baby remained in the cradle, breathing slow and even, wrapped snugly in soft cotton cloth. The father sat beside the cradle, hands resting lightly, watching the grains as though they themselves carried life. The grandmother leaned near, her face calm, hands folded. The mother's gaze lingered on the child, soft and unwavering. The priest cleared his throat, signaling that the moment had arrived. Slowly, he lowered his lips close to the baby's ears. The first whisper was soft, deliberate, and careful. The chosen name, simple, gentle, carrying the weight of generations, passed through the priest's lips, barely louder than a sigh. The sound touched the air lightly, brushing against the sleeping child, brushing against the quiet walls, brushing against the neem leaves overhead. The father closed his eyes for a brief moment, letting the sound settle in his chest. The mother's hand rested lightly on the cradle, and the baby shifted slightly, tiny fingers curling and uncurling in response to the faint vibration. A second whisper followed. It was identical in sound, deliberate and measured, rolling softly in the night air. This time, the mother repeated the sound in her own voice, just beneath a whisper, careful not to disturb the child's sleep. The name seemed to float, expanding slowly through the courtyard, touching each neighbor seated along the walls. The third whisper was slow, deliberate, and final. It lingered in the air, not leaving immediately but folding into itself, stretching across shadows, across lamplight, across the gentle curve of the cradle. The neighbors shifted slightly, as if leaning closer to the sound, though none spoke aloud. Their quiet presence was enough, a witness to the naming, a living frame for this small sacred moment. The baby stirred slightly, a faint sigh escaping, lips still half-curled in sleep. The cradle moved gently as the father nudged it forward, just a whisper of motion. The neem leaves above rustled in the faint breeze, as if acknowledging the final utterance. The priest rested his hands lightly on his knees. He did not rise. He did not speak further. The act itself, the repetition of the name 3 times, had completed its purpose. The identity of the child, carried in soft syllables, was now quietly woven into the night, into the courtyard, into the watching hearts of family and neighbors. The grandmother exhaled slowly, a faint smile touching her lips. The mother's hand lingered near the baby's cheek. The father leaned forward, brushing a stray strand of hair from the child's forehead. Each small gesture carried the weight of the ritual, calm, deliberate, and gentle. Outside, the village remained quiet. Even distant dogs, the low hum of insects, and the rustling of straw roofs seemed to pause, giving space to the sacred sound that had just passed through the air. The silver bowl of rice, still resting on the wooden stool, held the first letter of the name, each grain like a tiny monument to this quiet ceremony. The oil lamps flickered softly, the shadows dancing ever so slightly as if celebrating in silence. The baby remained asleep, breathing steady, unaware yet enveloped by the care, the intention, and the gentle repetition of a name that would follow them through life. And beneath the neem tree, in the warmth of soft lamplight and the watchful eyes of family, the name, whispered 3 times, settled into the world like a feather landing softly on still water. The courtyard had grown even quieter now, the ritual flowing steadily without rush. The oil lamps cast gentle halos across the courtyard, and the cradle sat empty for the first time in hours. The baby had been lifted carefully from its soft cotton nest and held close against the mother's chest. Tiny fingers curled lightly around the folds of her sari, breathing steady and unhurried. The priest motioned softly, signaling the next part of the ceremony. The neighbors, women first, rose slowly from their mats along the walls. Each movement was deliberate, measured, as though time itself had slowed to match the rhythm of the village evening. The mother stepped forward, cradling the baby gently, and extended her arms to the grandmother. With a quiet smile, the grandmother leaned in and received the child. The weight was slight, yet filled with presence, a small, living bundle carrying new life, love, and expectation. One by one, the women of the household followed. Each took the baby into her arms with the same care, holding for a few slow moments, allowing the warmth and tiny heartbeat to rest against her own. Hands rested gently under the child's back and head. Fingers brushed lightly over the soft cotton cloth. Everyone moved in quiet unison, no one hurrying, no one speaking louder than the soft creak of the cradle's empty runners in the corner. The baby's eyes opened briefly during the first pass. Tiny lashes lifted, revealing dark, unblinking eyes that scanned the dim courtyard. Then the eyelids drooped again, heavy with sleep, and the small sigh that followed seemed to settle over the hands holding it. The men of the household joined next. The father leaned forward, hands steady, and lifted the child carefully from the grandmother. He held the baby close, feeling the tiny warmth against his chest. The slow rocking of his arms seemed to mimic the gentle movement of the cradle earlier, each sway purposeful and protective. Neighbors observed silently. A few whispered soft blessings, their voices merging with the faint rustle of neem leaves and the flicker of oil lamps. The priest's hands remained folded in his lap, his gaze calm and patient, giving the ritual space to unfold naturally. Each pass lasted only a few breaths, yet felt elongated in the still night. The baby remained mostly quiet, occasionally shifting or curling a tiny fist, but never crying or startling. The rhythm of passing, one pair of arms to the next, created a slow, tender movement through the courtyard, connecting the family, the neighbors, and the sleeping child in a web of quiet attention. The final pass returned the baby to the mother's arms. She held the child close again, feeling the gentle weight, the soft warmth, the steady rise and fall of breath. The courtyard felt complete. The lines of oil lamps, the cradle, the silver bowl of rice, and the mango leaves above the doorway all seemed to watch in patient harmony. A soft breeze rustled the neem leaves overhead. Somewhere beyond the courtyard, a distant dog barked, and the faint echo of temple bells lingered in the night. The baby stirred slightly, tiny fingers brushing against the mother's shoulder, but remained calm. The grandmother smiled faintly, adjusting her sari. The priest inclined his head, signaling that the passing of the baby had been done correctly. The ritual had moved forward without haste, each movement deliberate, each gesture full of gentle care. And beneath the soft lamplight, with the family and neighbors surrounding them in slow, patient circles, the child had been carried, cradled, and passed from arm to arm. Held securely in the quiet devotion of the entire courtyard, yet unaware of the careful attention that wove each moment into a slow, sacred rhythm. The baby had been returned to the mother's arms, wrapped once again in soft cotton cloth. The gentle rocking had subsided, and the courtyard now carried a tender calm, punctuated only by the quiet murmur of the neighbors and the soft flicker of oil lamps. The priest signaled the next part of the ceremony. A simple, unhurried sharing of sweetened rice and warm milk. The silver bowl, still resting on the wooden stool, had been filled earlier in the evening with carefully boiled milk, its surface glinting in the lamplight. Sugar had been added slowly, each crystal measured and folded in with care, and a small pinch of cardamom sprinkled atop for fragrance. The grandmother carried a tiny brass bowl filled with a small portion of the sweetened rice. She moved slowly through the courtyard, offering it first to the mother. The mother accepted it with gentle hands, smiling faintly, and placed a small amount onto her own palm. She brought it to her lips, tasting the warmth and sweetness, nodding softly as if approving its flavor. One by one, neighbors followed suit. Each received a small portion of rice or milk in brass bowls, handling them with care. The sound of spoons against bowls was faint and deliberate, blending seamlessly with the occasional rustle of sari folds and the gentle flicker of lamp flames. No one spoke loudly, conversation was not necessary. The act itself was its own ritual, a slow, shared indulgence that connected everyone present in a quiet, communal intimacy. The baby remained nestled against the mother's chest, observing with dark, unblinking eyes. Tiny hands occasionally shifted, reaching instinctively toward the warmth of the mother's shoulder or the soft folds of her sari. The scent of sweetened rice and cardamom drifted faintly through the air, mingling with the lingering aroma of oil lamps and earth, adding to the comforting atmosphere. The father accepted a portion next, his hands steady, his expression calm. He brought the food slowly to his mouth, tasting each grain, savoring its warmth. The act was deliberate, reflective, more than just eating, it was participation in the rhythm of the night, a mindful inclusion in the sacred space surrounding the child. Children from neighboring homes, quiet and attentive, were offered tiny bowls as well. They sat cross-legged on the ground, tasting the sweetened rice and milk with small, careful movements. The courtyard echoed faintly with soft exclamations of satisfaction, yet these sounds were gentle, never loud enough to disturb the ceremony's slow pace. The priest moved among them briefly, offering small portions to those seated closest to him, and then returned to the silver bowl. He did not eat, but observed with quiet satisfaction. Every grain shared, every sip taken, reinforced the connection between family, neighbors, and the child whose naming had begun earlier that evening. The mother finally fed a tiny spoonful of sweetened rice to the baby. The child's lips parted slowly, tasting the warm sweetness, and then closed again, a faint sigh escaping in response. The cradle remained empty nearby, still ready for the next part of the ritual, but for now, the act of sharing had its own gentle rhythm. The courtyard, wrapped in the glow of oil lamps, filled with the muted sounds of careful eating and soft exhalations, seemed to hum with quiet satisfaction. Every presence, every gesture, every bite was deliberate, patient, and full of unspoken love. As the final bowls were emptied and placed aside, the neighbors leaned back slightly, content, their faces softened in the lamplight. The baby remained in the mother's arms, warm, fed, and unhurried, embodying the quiet culmination of the courtyard's patient, shared care. And beneath the neem tree, with shadows dancing softly and the sweet scent of rice lingering in the air, the village continued its slow, deliberate night, a gentle, unbroken rhythm carrying the child forward into life. The courtyard had grown heavier with the stillness of evening. The lamps flickered softly, casting gentle golden pools across the mud walls and the worn wooden beams above. The baby lay nestled in the mother's arms, full from sweetened rice and warm milk, eyes closed in quiet sleep. The cradle rested nearby, empty for the moment, its curved runners still and patient. The priest folded his palms together, signaling that the main parts of the ceremony had concluded. There was no sudden movement, no hurried announcements. The air seemed to settle into a slow, deliberate rhythm, acknowledging that the ritual had been completed in the gentlest of ways. One by one, the guests began to rise from their seats along the courtyard walls. The women first, adjusting their saris and stepping carefully so as not to disturb the lamps or the baby. They whispered quiet blessings under their breath as they moved toward the doorway, their footsteps soft against the packed earth. A neighbor offered a gentle smile to the grandmother before stepping past the mango leaves hanging above the doorway, their sway brushing lightly against the departing figure. Another paused briefly near the well, looking down at the water as if reflecting on the evening's quiet significance, before continuing toward the village path beyond. The men followed next. Each bowed slightly toward the family, hands folded in respect, then moved slowly to the courtyard gate. The father and priest observed silently, nodding faintly to acknowledge each departure. The courtyard seemed larger now that fewer bodies filled it, yet it felt complete. The calm of the night and the soft glow of the lamps holding its warmth. Even the children, who had watched curiously earlier, shuffled quietly toward the gate with the adults, holding small hands of siblings or friends. Their small murmurs were absorbed into the night, softened by the gentle flicker of lamplight. With each departing guest, the courtyard grew quieter. The soft footfalls receded into the distance, replaced by the occasional rustle of neem leaves and the faint hum of insects beginning their nightly chorus. The lamps flickered more prominently now in the open darkness, marking each figure's absence with a subtle dance of light and shadow. The grandmother finally rose, adjusting her sari, and stepped carefully to the doorway. She exchanged a few quiet words with the last remaining neighbors, nodding and smiling, and then watched them disappear into the soft shadows of the village path. The father leaned over the cradle, lifting the baby gently into his arms. The mother followed, brushing a stray lock of hair from the child's forehead. For a long moment, the courtyard held stillness, now absent of all visitors. Only the soft flicker of lamps, the rustling of neem leaves, and the steady breathing of the child remained. The priest gave a final nod, collected his small belongings, and stepped quietly to the gate. A final glance back revealed a courtyard still glowing in warm lamplight, the remnants of sweetened rice and gentle laughter lingering faintly in the air. One by one, the sounds of the village evening returned, a distant dog, the faint hum of night insects, the soft murmur of wind through the trees. Yet the calm presence of the family, the sleeping child, and the neatly arranged cradle remained undisturbed. The courtyard, once filled with neighbors and whispered blessings, now rested in gentle solitude. And beneath the neem tree, with lamps still flickering and shadows stretching slowly toward the walls, the family remained together, the ritual complete, the guests gone, and the night holding the quiet, patient rhythm of a village that had shared its care, its attention, and its love. The last of the guests had disappeared down the narrow village paths, their footsteps fading into the distance. The courtyard, once alive with whispers, soft songs, and the shuffle of mat-covered feet, now rested in complete stillness. Oil lamps flickered gently, casting small pools of golden light that trembled with each passing breeze, while shadows stretched lazily across mud walls and the worn wooden beams of the home. The baby slept peacefully in the father's arms, tiny chest rising and falling in slow, steady rhythm. The mother sat beside him, her hands lightly holding his own around their child, fingers brushing occasionally over soft cotton folds. The cradle, carefully prepared and emptied for the ritual, rested quietly nearby, its curved runners still, like a quiet sentinel. From the edges of the courtyard, the gentle rustle of neem leaves mingled with the faint distant sounds of village life. The low croak of a frog by the well, the soft hoot of an owl perched on a far-off roof, and the occasional whisper of wine through the mango leaves above the doorway. The temple bells, which had tolled earlier in the evening, were silent now, leaving the night to its calm, natural rhythm. The priest had departed, leaving the family with a quiet nod and a small, serene smile. There were no further chants, no remaining rituals. The evening had been slow, deliberate, and unhurried. Each step taken with care, every action measured. Now, the courtyard breathed in silence, heavy with contentment and soft shadows. The grandmother moved gently toward the well, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. She glanced at the empty cradle, then toward the sleeping child in his father's arms. She offered a faint, satisfied smile, recognizing that the ceremony, the slow naming, the careful passing, the whispered blessings, had completed exactly as it should. The father rose slightly, carrying the baby toward the modest wooden door. The mother followed closely, stepping with measured care over the smooth courtyard earth. Each movement was deliberate, yet entirely natural, as if the rhythm of the evening had seeped into their bones. Outside, the village had returned fully to its usual quiet night. Thatched roofs and mud walls stood dark and patient, shadows stretching along narrow alleys. The faint scent of night jasmine drifted through the air, mingling with the residual aroma of boiled milk, cardamom, and the gentle smoke of oil lamps. Even the animals had settled, cows shifted softly in their sheds, dogs lay curled against walls, and insects hummed quietly in the distant fields. Inside the home, the oil lamps flickered once more, casting a warm glow across the empty courtyard. The baby, now cradled in familiar arms, slept soundly. The family moved slowly and quietly, aware that the day had passed and that life would resume its ordinary, unhurried rhythm. Time itself seemed to pause for a moment, stretched by the calm of a night that had been carefully observed and shared. The villagers' laughter, chatter, and movement were replaced by quiet patience. The gentle creak of the cradle, the soft sigh of the sleeping child, and the rustle of neem leaves above marked the night's slow, soothing rhythm. And so, the village returned to its usual quiet night, peaceful, unhurried, and content. Beneath the stars and the gentle sway of the neem tree, the family rested together. The courtyard held the lingering warmth of ritual and care, and the village settled into the familiar embrace of darkness, carrying the calm, deliberate memory of a newborn's naming ceremony into the stillness of night.